For more on these protests in France and how the mainstream media is covering the story, I have to go to my friend Ben Swann, investigative journalist. Thanks for joining us today. Okay, this is an interesting way to break it down, as I'm sure you're watching social media and how the mainstream media is covering it, and the issues that each side takes is motivating it. So I have to ask, why does it appear that the mainstream media isn't as focused on the yellow vest protests in France as they have been on other movements worldwide and even here in the United States?
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good question. First of all, let's talk about a couple of those issues. So the Arab Spring uprisings, right, where we saw these supposedly triggered by social media, people in countries like Libya and in Syria stepping up and saying, in Egypt, we want Jeffersonian democracy. Now, when we take a look at those, we know that our government and Western governments funded a lot of those Arab Spring uprisings. They were not legitimate grassroots uprisings, though there were some people in those groups that were obviously legitimate. That's not where it came from. And yet the media acted as if, at that time, that those were spontaneous desires for democracy. Jeffersonian-style democracy. Now we see what's going on in France, and they don't want to talk about the fact that these are truly uprisings from the public, and it started, which is something you and I probably would have protested also, over a carbon gas or fuel tax, saying you're going to have to pay more for fuel, and the people said we're not going to pay more for fuel. That's how it all started, and the media doesn't want to talk about that.
And so why do you think that is? I mean, I hate to bring in the political ideology, but you're right. This started because they were going to raise gas prices. We saw it happen in the 70s. It got Carter, in fact, out of office when gas prices went up so high. But there are other parts they're realizing that the government just controls everything and that they're taxed high. So it's a lot of the same things, but they're still taking to the streets and burning things and vandalism in a negative way, which is something opposite of what you would see anti-tax protesters here in the United States be. So do you think some way that they're ever going to cover these protests and say, well, it's actually because the government was too involved in everybody's daily lives and these are a big revolt? This is truly a Tea Party in Paris?
I don't think they'll say that because, first of all, it does not fit the media narrative, right? The media wants to act as if the people who are there, well, of course, now part of the claim is they're being, as I heard in your story, being kind of spurred on by Russian troll farms. Mm-hmm. But the reality is that the people who are uprising are saying, we want to have a voice in our government. We want a democratic system, and they don't have that. And the other thing is, when you read the stories which refer to Macron as being a free market guy, he is not a free market guy. He's a cronyism leader. He believes in cronyism, but he's not a capitalist, truly believing in free markets and creating fair conditions and fair markets in France. That has not happened under his authority.
Well, that's very much a great point on this. Okay, so let's look at the issues right here in Paris. You're talking about a lot of the same issues that we're dealing with here in the United States, but they've been doing it for over a decade. Free health care, free college, everything's free, paying for, but then at some point you do get to pay for it every year when your tax bill comes. Do you think that's one of the reasons possibly that they're saying, as we're seeing some of those same movements take up steam here in the United States, that possibly that might be why they're not giving the coverage for it, because it kind of slants one political side over another?
Well, it's almost like, look at your future, right? So if you are in the mindset here that says free college for everyone, and everyone, we're going to have a wage for everyone, a living wage, regardless of whether you have a job or not, all those ideas which are being pushed now by socialists in the United States to say this is where we want to go, have been kind of lived out in France so far. And now this is the result, which is the people of France saying, we hate the system. We don't have enough money to survive. We're not doing well. Corporations are in charge. They're making lots of money. Big entities make lots of money. Government makes lots of money. But we as individuals have been capped in what we can do. You and I both know that's where we're headed if we continue down this road in the U.S. And that's why there's so much pushback on it to say, let's not go to where France is.
Hey YouTube, thanks for checking out our channel. We hope you enjoyed the video. We have tons of content for you just like this. For more of RT America's one-of-a-kind news and analysis, be sure to subscribe and never stop questioning more.